and good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Some quick things. Joanne, you were going to talk a little bit about this. I'll just go over it very quickly. Loeys-Dietz looks like Marfan syndrome, but has a bunch of other characteristics that are not Marfan syndrome. And so part of the challenge that you have in the medical community as medical professionals is how do I determine what is a Marfan, what is a Loeys-Dietz, Ehlers-Danlos, and the such. Your best starting point is the collaboration with the patients and their families, okay? And I'm going to make a special note to Dr. Xavier Garrido, who's here tonight, who I say thank you very much, because the first time we met her, she said, tell me about this disease. She said, hold on. She walked out. She came back 15 minutes later. She said, okay, now I'm ready. She did some research, and we sat there, and we had a team discussion, which I appreciate so much, and she's our go-to person, anything that's cardiology at the pediatric level. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it. So I'm not going to talk to you about the disease. What I'm going to ask you by a show of hands, if I gave you, am I okay here? Yeah. If I gave you $15,000 and I said that you could get $1,064,000 in return, would that be a good investment? So by show of hands, please lift your hands up. $15,000, okay? By the way, everybody should have their hands up. If you don't, then you're not getting the point of this discussion. Thank you. So the question, I'm a business guy. I don't understand medicine. I don't understand diseases. I understand business. And so the question was, how do we raise money for something, and how do we do it differently than is being done today? And $15,000 to $1,046,000, that's US dollars, so it's worth a lot more. And essentially, it's due to this lady, Dr. Pamela Guerrero, who is a specialist at Johns Hopkins. She was working in Dr. Dietz, so the Loeys-Dietz, the Dietz portion of the disease, in his lab. And she had a super young, dynamic, bright lady, had an idea for some research, and nobody would fund her. It was too off the wall. It was too out of the mainstream. And as you probably know, only between 10 and 19%, depending on the countries, of research gets funded. Who gets funded? The people with brands, the people with big names, right? Those are the people. The young people, like yourselves, it's very hard to get the funding. So the Loeys-Dietz Foundation in the US gave her $15,000. Why this is important is she was able to parlay that into a series of other grants. So she got grants from the AR Trust, and then eventually she got from the NIH. Today she has a full lab at the NIH in Washington, okay? So I said, okay, if we could take $15,000 and turn it into $1,064,000, how do we do that on a larger scale globally? And so think of seed, planting a seed, and creating a tree. And this is where tonight this is really critical, because for all of you, you guys are all going to plant the seeds, okay? And people like us working with you are going to help you to grow those trees. So you're going to have great ideas, and the idea is to fund young researchers. So we came up with an idea to inspire, attract, and retain. How do we get young people like yourselves excited and interested in this disease? So we said, okay, if we're, go back here. So the idea behind it is, if we were to do a series of grants for young investigators and give them $25,000 for something that was a little bit outside of the box, if you'd like, and then help them through collaborations to go and get other grants, and eventually they could make a difference on a global scale. We're not just talking Canada or the United States, we're talking globally here. So the idea is, give a whole bunch of young people money for good ideas, and also give them the opportunity to collaborate with other people around the world who are experts in their area and may have pieces of the puzzle that they may not have. Or the other people are looking for a piece of a puzzle that somebody in this room might have. Okay, that's the idea behind it. So the question then becomes, okay, how do we do this? And so we said, okay, let's go to the next step. And we built, essentially what we did is we got a couple of students, and we built a database of every single article written on Loeys-Dietz. So we went through 25 databases globally, some of them in multiple different languages, and we were able to pull out 2,000 citations of Loeys-Dietz. That's great, but it doesn't mean anything, because they could mention the weather, or they could mention Loeys-Dietz in passing, and it's not pertinent. So we had a team go through the 2,000 articles and eliminate all the articles that were not about Loeys-Dietz. Then we said, okay, and as you probably know, in this business, the first and last name on an article are your key names, right? So we said, okay, what happens if we built a database of every first and last name, and we built a database of 500 researchers and doctors around the world? So we said, okay, if we go back to our model, how does it typically work? A foundation will put out a request for grant. Some people will see it, some people won't see it, and some people who see it will make their application. That's great. But a lot of people won't see it and are not aware of it. So we said, how do we go and get more of those people? So we said, what happens if we go to the first and last name and we say to them, Jesse, in your lab, who's the hot star? Okay, who's that up-and-coming young person that needs that little bit of what we call seed money to get it from here to there? So the idea is to essentially be proactive and go out to the communities and solicit from the leaders who the young up-and-coming bucks are. Okay, that's really what we want. The next step of that is to say, okay, let's assume we fund them. And we can't fund everybody, unfortunately, because we don't have unlimited resources. But we can fund a certain number of them. And then on top of that, the ones that we don't fund, we can help them to collaborate elsewhere. So, for example, the Morisakis, who run a phenomenal operation in Japan, have a piece of the puzzle. Well, what happens if Jesse is doing research on something here, and we introduce you to the Morisakis, who you wouldn't normally meet, and now we put the two together. And all of a sudden, we create a collaboration between more senior, more junior, and we've got something that nobody else has. So the element here, or the idea, is to take the young people, you guys, with your, we talked about humility before, right? That was a discussion we had out there, with a different set of glasses and people that are willing to look and try different things, and pair them up in a collaborative model. That's really what we want to do. So we want to provide capital, and we want to provide collaboration opportunities. Okay, so that's the idea behind it. The next step to that will then be to develop a registry. Why a registry? Because as we have data, and we were talking with Eric before about lots of data and how much stuff is growing and the such. Well, as you have more data, you're now in a position to start to understand what the trends are, to look for patterns, and again, couple that with the collaborations, you can now make a difference. So the next part of the puzzle for us, we talk about the Young Investigator Award Program, will be a patient registry, which we'll put together, and again, with the help and participation of the young investigators. People like yourselves that in 5 years from now will have a brilliant idea, and people will look at you and say, sorry, I can't fund you. There's no money for you. Well, if we can be those people to provide you with the seed, that little acorn that we talked about, and bring it into a tree, right, that makes a difference. So here's the question. Let's assume we funded 20 people over the next 5 years, and 2 of them hit home runs. They went from seed to a tree. What do you think that does on a global basis? You change the face of the disease globally. We're not talking Canada, we're not talking United States, we're talking global. That's the opportunity that we have here today, is to make a difference globally in each of the different areas that we're talking about. So I commend you. We love what you're doing. It's fantastic. You guys are the future. You will make the difference as we go forward. I thank you very much for the work that you're doing and your interest. The fact that there's 100 people here tonight interested in that are all young, excited future doctors and medical professionals is exciting. So thank you very much. Great initiative. We'll help you and support you in any way we can. And anybody has an idea and you want to talk or you want to brainstorm or you want to put a business plan together or whatever, call me. She's got my contact info. We'll sit down and we'll help you guys to do that.